race. And so we'll just have to see what happens there. Perhaps the marshals sensibly not wanting to get into a fairly dangerous place at the end of that straight, where the cars are braking from very high speed indeed. So we've got a yellow flag. We've gone full course yellow again, so the whole track has to slow down. Everyone has to hold position. We went into the first round of pit stops. Lap number 25 early for the first pit stops, but perhaps it's possible as in comes Gilles de Ferran, the race leader now. And we're going to see quite a lot of action as just going across the line. It looked to me as though Zanardi may have stayed out. We'll just have to check that in a moment. There is Gilles de Ferran.
Now, I think that was Jimmy Vasser. Now, that's great news for Jimmy Vasser, of course, because with that pit stop, he's now able to go around, go ahead of these guys, and that should get the lap back for Jimmy Vasser, and also, hopefully, for Michael Andretti. So good news for them. There is Alex Zanardi with his service completed.
And he's got out ahead, I think, of Gilles de Ferran. He's in front of the Valvoline car. Yes, so Zanardi will be up there, but of course he won't be leading the race because a few drivers have stayed out there, not come in yet. Saw Jip Ganassi there as Zanardi in good position, and there another incident, and there's Paul Tracy again involved with Paul Jasper this time. Paul Jasper, the rookie driver who did his first race in Surfers Paradise, and problems down there. Oh dear, it's all action at the moment, isn't it? Again, a bit like the Australian race.
Yeah, that's a bit strange, isn't it? Under caution, I can't imagine what caused that one. Jasper had been into the pits earlier on, and he's still trying to get the marshals to give him a push start. And dear, there goes Paul Tracy drifting wide there, straight into the path of Paul Jasper.
I wonder if Paul had actually come out of the pits there.
Absolutely. He'd certainly just made his pit stop. Jasper had not. And Paul there on cold tyres, he tried to turn into the corner there. No grip from those front tyres on that concrete. And I think we can't say that was the fault of the rookie driver, Paul Jasper. I think we have to say that Paul made a slight error of judgment there, and that's a great shame for Roger Penske's team.
That's right, so the car's behind the pace car once again, and it's all action. Just saw Dario Franchitti flashing through the picture there. Dario's down in 17th position at the moment, and we've got Raul Boesel leading this race so far because he didn't stop on that last round.
Yeah, that's a curious piece of strategy by the Patrick team there. What it has been able to do is, I think Jimmy Vasser is still a lap down now. So it's quite an interesting piece of strategy. Rabas are not making that pit stop and not allowing the other guys to get back on the lead lap.
So all change as Boesel leads, but as Zanardi is ahead of de Ferran, which is important, then Guterman, Pruitt and Rahal. It flies once again, and the leaders go across the line. Raul Boesel is now the race leader with Alex Zanardi in second, but in fact, let's just see as they come down, Raul Boesel still in front. There's Zanardi in second place. We've got some lapped cars mixed up between them as well, just to confuse the issue, but that's our race leader, number 40 in the Brahma Sports car. That's the same team as Scott Pruitt, but Raul Boesel did not come into the pits on that last round of stops, and he now leads the race.
Yeah, and Jimmy Vasser is ahead of him, so he is technically on the lead lap. The pace car picks up the next car behind the leader as the leader comes into the pits. That, with the other guys pulling into the pits as well, that was therefore Jimmy Vasser. So he then he is trapped behind the pace car, and what he has to hope for now is another full course caution, which will enable him to go around to the back of the pack. In the meantime, of course, he is back on the lead lap, and he'll try his best to stay there ahead of Raul Boesel, and Alex Zanardi is in second place. Back down the pack a bit. He's lost a couple of positions. Well, I guess it's just slower cars, I beg your pardon. Slower traffic there between Alex Zanardi and Gilles de Ferran. So costly error really by those guys in the pits. There's Roberto Moreno trying to get past Max Papis, and there is the erstwhile race leader Gilles de Ferran, who's in third position right now.
Yeah, squeezing past Max Papis, that was okay, but he's now got to try and find a way past Roberto Moreno. Moreno running quite a lot further down the order after the incident that he had with a damaged left rear as well. Moreno runs in 24th position, so a long way back, and I would imagine that he will let de Ferran through, or maybe not, because don't forget the back markers in this form of racing is slightly different to perhaps in European racing, because the back markers always have the opportunity to make up perhaps a whole lap at a time if the yellow flags fall right for them. So the back markers not always, Jeremy, very keen to let the leaders through, are they?
No, that's right, particularly if they're competitive back markers. Roberto Moreno is 2 laps down, I think, at this stage, and you know, if the strategy if the cards fall his way, you never know what might happen. But one hopes he doesn't get in the way of Gilles de Ferran here and spoil what would be a battle for position at the front of the field. Roberto's a very experienced driver. If he can run quick enough to stay ahead of Gilles de Ferran, I'm sure he'll do so.
So watching on board from de Ferran's car with Guterman chasing after him. He's in 4th position, Maurizio Guterman. As you can see from the standings, Marc Blundell has come up to 7th place now. So he's putting in a good consistent run at the moment, staying out of trouble. Unser's into the top 10. Franchitti is in 11th place, as you just saw. So there's been a lot of changing around since the start of this race on lap number 32 out of 105. Oh, that was all a little bit close as they came into the hairpin. Hard braking there, and Gilles de Ferran, it looked as though he was almost going to be in trouble behind Roberto Moreno's car. Managed to sort it all out, but he can see that up front Zanardi's getting the opportunity to get away. Some 4 seconds now Gilles de Ferran is separated from Alex Zanardi, and he will not be happy about that. It looks as though de Ferran has had the fastest car here so far today, but he's now trapped behind these other cars, seeing Zanardi escape up front, Boesel escaping as well, although he's on a different pit stop strategy, so that may change a little bit later in the race. De Ferran's main worry will be Zanardi, 4 seconds up the road, and that's not good news. There is Boesel, there's Zanardi, then this little gaggle of cars, and there is Gilles de Ferran.
Yeah, the 2 Swifts ahead of him there, Michael Andretti and Roberto Moreno holding station behind him as a loyal teammate. Moreno is an extra lap down. Michael Andretti is just 1 lap down in 20th position at the moment, and some interesting teammate strategy coming in there, I believe, Ben.
Yes, and the championship at stake as well to a certain extent, although very early days, but I'm sure Andretti will be doing everything he can to score what he can from this, sort of pick up the pieces, as it were. So de Ferran still trapped behind the 2 Swifts. Then Maurizio Guterman is right behind him, and this the view from the Goodyear blimp just overhead the circuit, and gives you a good idea of just how much the street track is a part of the city of Long Beach. Long Beach City is almost a sort of suburb city of Los Angeles itself, isn't it, Jeremy?
Yeah, the port of Los Angeles, effectively, the major port here, just a mile or so down the road or up the coast, or whatever way you want to look at it. And yeah, a thriving area. This, you know, it was a very depressed area, Long Beach, a little bit more than 20 years ago when Chris Pook set up this race here. Initially it was run as a Formula 5000 race, then of course the Formula 1 World Championship race, and as a result of that, the prestige of the area was greatly enhanced, and it's now a thriving area here. There's a big marina behind us here, a new aquarium being built, and it's really come a long, long way in the 20 years since expat Englishman Chris Pook set up the Long Beach Grand Prix.
And it's providing an entertaining race so far as Raul Boesel leads with a gap of just under a second from Alex Zanardi. Then Gilles de Ferran is 4.3 seconds further back in 3rd place, still behind the lapped cars of Andretti and Moreno. Scott Pruitt is up there in 5th place, so still looking good for scoring some points here today. Bobby Rahal in 6th, Marc Blundell in 7th. And I tell you, one of the guys that lost out through that round of pit stops, we didn't really see what happened to him, but Brian Herter there, Jeremy, he's now down in 9th position. And earlier on, he was running in 6th place, so obviously there was some sort of disaster in his pit stop.
Yeah, shame for Brian Herter, and it's going to be tough to make it up there. You know, he's stuck there behind Parker Johnstone, actually a couple of seconds behind Parker Johnstone, with Unser Jr hot on his heels in turn, as we're on board again there with Gilles de Ferran chasing the Swift of Roberto Moreno. You know, it's early stages in this race. A heck of a lot can happen in the remaining, what have we got, 70 laps to go, Ben.
Looking at the standings then, Boesel is the leader after 35 laps from Zanardi, de Ferran, Guterman, Pruitt and Bobby Rahal. The top 6 with Marc Blundell pretty close. Having a look now at Unser Jr, and Junior just up into the top 10, as we mentioned. He's in 10th position, just behind Brian Herter. There is the other Team Rahal car that we mentioned, having lost time in the last round of pit stops. Unser Jr, the 6 times winner of this race, and a remarkable record he's had here. But qualifying has not gone his way at all in the last few races, and they seem to be struggling to get the Penske to work on the Goodyear tyres, particularly in qualifying trim. And on new tyres, he was saying after yesterday that the car sometimes feels better on tyres that are slightly worn or have done a lap or two than when they're actually brand new tyres. But of course, you need the car to work on brand new tyres. That's the only way you're going to get a good qualifying run.
Yeah, you know, as Al says often, you know, qualifying is a completely different animal to the race. He in the past has tended to concentrate on the race setup. He's not too worried about qualifying, but you know, as the series has become more and more competitive, it's more and more difficult to make up positions. If you start back in the pack, it's awfully difficult to make a lot of passing maneuvers. So if you start back 12th, 14th, 15th, is very, very difficult, particularly on these street course races.
Yes, and no matter how good an overtaker you are, how good a racer you are, if you give yourself that much hard work to do, it's going to be a tough afternoon, and that's what Unser's finding down in 10th position. Oh, no, not again. Now, this is amazing. What is going on? There must be some sort of problem out there to be constantly tearing these tyres like this. Michael Andretti, it is for the second time in this race, and it is remarkable to see how many cars are doing this. Andretti's not the sort of guy to make that mistake so often.
And exactly the same place as before. How strange. I can't imagine that anything is fouling the tyre there on the car. In fact, one of the changes to the bodywork regulations a year or so ago was to move the bodywork away from the tyre, so that should alleviate any potential problems there. So very bizarre indeed, that one.
Well, we wait to see if we find out any more. Perhaps there is still some debris on circuit. Perhaps there's just the edge to a curb somewhere, which for some reason, if they're just sliding over the curb, is tearing the tyre. It seems strange to see so many of the top drivers running into trouble in exactly the same way, both the Swifts and now Michael Andretti Swift for the second time. So on the board at the moment, as we just go back to Michael Andretti, and he's getting used to this, isn't he? Freewheeling his wagon back to the pit lane. But I wonder how much more this sort of punishment the rear bodywork of the car is going to take. Seems to be standing up to it pretty well. The Swift chassis actually built in this state, Jeremy, in California. It's been a remarkably good start to the season for it, but it doesn't seem to be going quite so well today.
No, just a few miles down the road, San Clemente, 25 miles or so down the coastline here. And that'll be very, very disappointing for those guys. Big crowd of people here cheering on the Newman Haas team, and particularly the Swift engineering guys.
Yes, all those guys who worked so hard over the winter to put this car together. Look at Michael there. Looks very calm, doesn't he, as he nods away as he talks to his race engineer. And again, the repairs going to the rear bodywork as the mechanics at the back trying to sort of get the damaged bits out of the way. He gets the signal to restart, and out goes Michael Andretti once again. We've completed 39 laps now of 105, and still race leader is Raul Boesel.
And doing a beautiful job indeed. He's lapping very, very consistently, mid-53s there, and that's very, very tidy indeed. It's just about exactly the same pace as his teammate was running at the beginning of the race when he was out in front. So really, Raul Boesel taking the bull by the horns here, and he's got a comfortable little gap over Alex Zanardi of a little bit more than a second, which is maintained for the last half dozen laps or so. So it's great to see Raul Boesel. You know, he really deserves to win a race. He's had 6 second-place finishes in his career, and he really is owed a race win.
But he must have to come into the pits soon. Well, as I said, he comes into the pits now. I was just about to say he needs a yellow flag to get a pit stop in, but he's had to come in. He cannot stay out there any longer. He needs the fuel, and Boesel has to stop under green flag racing conditions, so that could be the end of the challenge for the lead for Raul Boesel. They took the gamble, they took the risk of staying out there under the first yellow. They were planning to come in if there was another yellow flag, a lot of fuel to go on board, obviously, and so Boesel slips down the order, and our new race leader is Alex Zanardi, who's 5.6 seconds ahead of Gilles de Ferran, with Gutermin still there in third, and there's a problem with the vent hose by the looks of things.
Oh dear, also a problem there for Max Papis there. Once again, the Toyota engine looks like a major problem there for the Italian driver. Gosh, they've had a lot of engine problems. Actually, I gather they've only had 4 failures this weekend, which is a lot better than 10 last weekend in Australia. So things look to be looking up, but not so. You know, we'll probably go full course caution. It wouldn't surprise me if you go full course caution because of this. What bad luck for Raul Boesel. You know, but the race isn't over. Everybody else still has to make one more pit stop at least, and you never know what might happen.
Well, it's still green flag at the moment, but as you say, that would be ironic for Raul Boesel if they go to a yellow flag now. But he couldn't stretch it any further. He must have been on the limit. He went to about 40 laps before he came in, so that was going to be tough. As Zanardi leads, de Ferran in second place, Maurizio Gutermin in third, Scott Pruitt in fourth, and we are going to a yellow flag. We get the news, yes, it goes to a full course yellow. They need to get that car of Max Papis out of the way, and that means that everybody bunches up once again. Now that will give de Ferran the opportunity to close up a bit to Zanardi, but they will stay in position at the moment. Now, there are slightly new rules coming in after the bits and pieces at Homestead. By the way, we're just looking here at a little bit of action from the celebrity race, which took place yesterday. So Jack Brabham, the former multiple world champion, entered into the race, along with an awful lot of actors and other celebrities from Los Angeles and other parts of the United States, taking part in identical Toyotas for the celebrity event. And, well,